How did the Lego Group become the largest tire manufacturer in the world? What are the nuances of the fish mass production? And is it true that making a toothbrush isn't that easy? You're about to find out the answers to these questions. This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll show you the most interesting production processes that will make your hair stand on end. Let's go! Lego Factory. When asked which toys can be considered the most popular in the world, most will not hesitate to answer. It's not for nothing that the Lego Group company has been a leader in the children's toy market for many years. Not surprisingly, even many adults do not mind having fun at their leisure playing these toys. But how to produce hundreds of thousands of toys? After all, each of them must have the ideal shape to connect with others and create multi-dimensional figures. One of the secrets of the company is a special kind of plastic, which began to be supplied to the production in 1963. The new composition had a high strength and resistance to loss of color. It had only one disadvantage. It was impossible to produce transparent details, so they began to use another material to imitate colored glass – polycarbonate plastic. In terms of factory production, the production of Lego toys is a fairly simple process. In fact, the creation of elements of the construction sets consists of pouring liquid plastic into a mold and placing it under the press. First, very hot plastic is poured into the molds, and then it spreads through small channels and enters the pressing area through very small cuts. When cold water is poured into the molding machine, it helps the plastic to cool and the mold opens, allowing the blocks to fall onto the conveyor belt. Then follows the second, more complex part of the process, processing and adding artistic details, such as images on the plastic. An interesting fact, a few years ago, the company decided to calculate the exact number of toys produced by the factories in 1 year. Based on the calculation, it turned out that in 2011, the company produced 318 million miniature tires for various toy vehicles, making the Lego Group the world's largest tire manufacturer. Even such a company like Michigan produced only 184 million tires that year. Interesting, isn't it? Further, there are even more interesting facts. Stay tuned and don't miss out on all the most exciting and unusual manufacturing processes that will surprise you. Fish production. There's also a place for modern technology in factories where production is not done without manual labor. In such cases, automation is required in order to monitor the productivity of each employee. Cutting white fish, such as tilapia, is difficult to automate, so long lines are organized, each of which can employ several dozen people. A computer uses weight and time sensors to gather statistics for each worker and displays the information in bar charts. However, all other processes of the fish mass production, such as removal of scales, have long been entrusted to machines. Even the automatic removal of bones is in the process of being implemented in some factories. Toothbrushes. Few of us have thought about how many different brushes there are in the world, and this despite the fact that we use them every day at home. This category includes toothbrushes, hairbrushes, floor mops, and more. But there are not many companies in the world that are involved in the production of brushes with bristles made of plastic. Large factories where dozens of models are produced simultaneously have managed to achieve a very high production speed. Program machines fill the model's holes with the required number of bristles at lightning speed. A separate production hall is often designed for toothbrush production. Subjected to temperature control, the materials are melted here into a thick mass that is then poured into a metal mold of large size to create the dummy brushes, onto which the bristles are later inserted. Usually between 10 and 100 such bases are made in a single batch. Each brush head has 56 holes. Isn't that a lot? In fact, the machine produces 10 bases every 35 seconds. At the same time, nylon fibers are used to produce bristles. The finished bundles are carefully aligned by the robotic arm of the machines and then inserted into the holes of the brush heads. The automated system functions faster than any human, so manual labor is not acceptable in this production process. In terms of hygiene, everything is also done at a safe level here since the workers do not touch the bristles. A machine bends the filaments in half and hooks them to a wire that runs down the middle of the toothbrush. Once the bristles are firmly fixed, it's time for a shortcut. The blades cut all the bristles to the same length. Their edges are shaped differently, which depends directly on the model being produced. The color of the bristles does not matter much for the manufacturer. They can put any color depending on what's in fashion this season. Cheese production. Cheese is one of the most popular foods on the planet. Every country has at least a few technologies for making their own cheese, but they also have some things in common. For example, all cheese is made from milk. Most often it's cow's milk, less often it's goat's milk, sheep's milk, or any other kind. There are especially exotic varieties such as South African cheeses made from camel milk, or cheeses made from buffalo and even yak milk. The basis of the cheese, as I said earlier, is milk. First of all, it's kept for 12 to 14 hours at 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. Lactic acid bacteria is added to the milk for some varieties and not added for some. During aging, the acidity in the milk increases and the composition changes for the better. A special enzyme of animal origin is used as a clotting agent. It's added in the liquid state and thoroughly mixed for even distribution for 6 to 7 minutes. Then the future cheese is left to form a lump. Curdling time for hard cheeses is 30 to 35 minutes, for soft cheeses is 50 to 90 minutes, and for cheeses with reduced fat content, 35 to 40 minutes. After this, processing of the future head of cheese begins. It's about removing the so-called whey, liquid, which has dissolved components of milk in its composition. Whey is often removed by kneading. Then the final step begins. It's about giving the shape to the final product. Of course, before the cheese appears on the grocery store shelves, there is still a multi-step packaging process, but the basic product is ready. Toilet paper. Today you can see dozens of different brands and kinds of toilet paper on store shelves. But what's the difference between them? At a basic level, there are two kinds of toilet paper, the kind made from sawdust and the kind made from recycled paper. As with the production of usual paper, it all starts with a special mixture of wood chips and water. Then the roll production line pours the mixture into a special transparent grid. Excess liquid drains into a tank and is sent to the paper washing stage. The paper pulp enters the drying drum, which reaches a temperature of 110 degrees Celsius via a conveyor belt. The drum rotates evenly and the new raw material dries. Then, using a special knife, the dried mass is cut into sheets and rolled up. Next, an unwinding machine unwinds the reels and rolls the paper into finished rolls. Here the paper is embossed and the desired structure is formed, 2 or 3 layers. Wine corks. Everyone knows what wine is made of, but how are wine corks made? Making wine corks is not as simple a process as it may seem. Wine cork is obtained from the bark of a special cork oak that grows only on the west coast of the Mediterranean Sea. A few centuries ago, there was enough raw materials to produce hundreds of thousands of corks for wine bottles. Today, there are very few wild-growing trees left. The bark is cut by hand only in July and August and left to dry for 5 to 6 months. After that, it's sorted. Part of it becomes the wine corks and the rest becomes cork coverings, parquet, etc. Sorted cork is boiled for an hour in a special solution, cut into strips, and sorted again. After that, the pieces of raw material are washed, disinfected, and soaked. Only after that, wine corks are made of these pieces. To use them for corking wine bottles, they're kept in wine, ethanol, or cognac. The best corks are made of a piece of whole bark. They're used for corking vintage and collector-grade wines. The rest of the material, which doesn't conform to the quality, is covered with a special cork dust and used for corking medium-price wines. The rest of the waste is crumbled and recycled, making inexpensive corks. These are the simplest and the most popular products in which the pieces of material are glued. Such glued corks are used for corking cheap wines, which are not designated for long-term storage. That's all, guys. Have you ever been on some factory? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching and see you later.